Alright, I might read for a bit. I didn't rest it up enough, so I have some type of energy. I think I'm gonna finish page 8 or something last time. I think I officially started reading aesthetics. But I wasn't actually absorbing it. I was just reading it, just to be reading it out loud. Okay. Let's see. Art for art's sake. I remember that. So, let's see. I remember this part. Okay, so I'm officially on page 9. Yeah, I think I just finished page 8, so I'm gonna just go. I'm starting page 9. Okay. If one great and hotly controversial debate in aesthetics concerns the question, what is art? The other great question is, what is beauty? This perhaps is the first question of aesthetics, because whatever one answers to the question, what is art, one has to know what one is including or excluding, showing to be essential or inessential to its nature when the question of beauty's relation to art, is mooted. Beauty is almost certainly not essential to art, but it is a common enough aim of art, and sometimes is what elevates a work to the condition of art. In all these connections, we need to know what we think it is. One effort at definition might be this: beauty is that quality consisting in one or more form, harmony, color, texture, proportion, and other features of something which excites some combination of reactions of pleasure, admiration, and attraction of a sensuous or intellectual kind, or both, in a human observer. The very fact that one has to attempt a definition by means of such generalities illustrates both the difficulty of defining beauty and the difficulty of deciding whether it is an objective quality of things or a subjective projection from varying individual responses. The study of aesthetics addresses both matters. In the tradition of antiquity, there was much agreement that beauty, whether intellectual or sensuous, and here the sense is primarily that of vision, is a matter of proportion and harmony. For the ancient Greeks in general, the aesthetic and moral qualities are inseparably linked. A statue of a trained athlete is as much as a representation of moral as of physical beauty, because the harmonies and fitness of the figure's shape serve as a symbol for nobility of character, clearness of intellect, steadiness of purpose, and continence of appetite. In appetite, as much as they display excellence of physical form. The Pythagoreans located the harmonies in question in mathematical relations, such as exist in the golden section. Observe when a line segment is apportioned into two parts of unequal length, such that the ratio of the short length to the long length is equal to the ratio of the long length to the whole segment. The 18th century philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz also held that mathematical harmony underlies perceived beauty without the observer being conscious of the fact. Both Plato and Philebus and St. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologica, written 1265 through 64, define beauty in terms of proportion likewise, but without unconscious recognition of mathematical underpinnings. For Aquinas, as David Hume, 1711-76, much later, beauty is a form of pleasure. This differs from the view of St. Augustine, who argued that beauty is the cause of pleasure, not identical with it. The disagreement is a significant one because whereas St. Augustine's view is consistent with thinking that beauty is an objective property, Aquinas' view makes beauty a subjective matter. With Rene Descartes and David Hume agreed, regarding all judgments of beauty as subjective and individual and an expression of emotional responses. For some 18th century philosophers, Hume among them, this subjectivist account did not reduce the value of beauty, but rather raised the value of the human mind, for they applauded its honorable and praiseworthy abilities to beauty in things. This was an essential part of Francis Hutcheson's argument, his inquiry to the original of our beauty, his inquiry into the original of our ideas of beauty and virtue, 1725. Either on an objectivist or a subjectivist view, this development in the 18th century thinking made taste a central concept in aesthetics. In characteristic vein, the great Immanuel Kant defined beauty as both objective and subjective, or rather, he argued that the right view of it shows that it is a third thing that transcends both. He distinguished the beautiful from the sublime, arguing that the latter contains within it something that disturbs the observer because of a dissonance between reason and sensory experience. As for example, when one gazes down into an awesome and profoundly deep chasm among soaring mountains and rocky crags, beauty, by contrast, is all pleasure, and the pleasure in question is disinterested, non-conceptual, gives a satisfying sense of purpose without purposiveness, and carries with it the conviction that anyone else would share these same feelings. That is, a sense that the judgment that the object in question is beautiful will command universal agreement. Despite Kant, the difficulty of denying that there are many and often irreconcilable differences between people, between individuals in the same cultures at the same time, as well as between people in different cultures and times, and what they regard as beautiful, makes the subjectivist interpretation compelling for many. Edgar Allan Poe defined beauty as an effect, not quality. George Santayana agreed with Hume that beauty is what we ascribe to something on the basis of our own emotions, and that it is an interesting psychological phenomenon worthy of investigation that people should want others to agree with them when they judge something beautiful. It is informative to look at what counts as unbeautiful as a way of shedding light on the nature of beauty. Thus, anything ugly, grotesque, gruesome, repugnant to the stugment or the moral sense, boring, uninteresting, trivial, over-sentimental, over-decorated, sickly sweet, or nauseating has little chance of being accounted beautiful. One notes that almost all these notions describe responses or reactions. We typically say that ugly things or situations are repulsive, and this literally means they make us wish to turn away and stop seeing or hearing or touching them. And this gives further support to the idea that judgment of beauty are expressions of response and say something about us, human beings, at least as much as they say something about what lies outside human heads. A major theme in modern and contemporary art is that there is not necessarily a connection between art and beauty. I'm going to turn this way. Okay. A major theme in modern and contemporary art is that there is not a necessary connection between art and beauty. This view has been influentially discussed by, among others, Nelson Goodman and this philosophy of art, and it directly controverts the views of an earlier aesthetician, R.G. Collingwood, who had defined art specifically as the attempt to produce beauty. But if art is the vehicle for the expression of an artist's feelings, it may well be that the artist will deliberately seek to produce ugly or rebarbative, challenging, or even disgusting works. Many among contemporary artists succeed. One imagines it is considerably easier than doing the other thing. But prevailing practice and attitude in this respect are not without their critics, as shown by the writings of the contemporary thinker Mary Mothersill, who, in decrying the detachment of beauty from art, argues that art criticism implicitly and avoidantly turns on the ideas of beauty. It might be said that those who deliberately seek to produce its opposite thereby demonstrate the truth of her thesis, which has proved influential in current aesthetic debate. Arguably, beauty is a necessity of life. It is certainly a component of anything that can be accounted a good or well-lived life. The absence of beauty from a person's experience might not make him bad, but it can fail to be a diminution of his possibilities of feeling and response. This is something so instinctively understood by human beings that they go to great lengths to find beauty, to make it, and almost everyone endeavors to have tokens of it present in their daily lives. The ornaments and pictures that decorate their homes, the colors that paint their walls, the vase of flowers they put on the table. These are all invocations of beauty and testaments to its significance. All right, that was aesthetics. So I understood more of what I was reading today than what I was yesterday. I, Yesterday I was trying to do too much. Well, not even yesterday, the day before yesterday. I was trying to do too much of reading and look up, like, as if you're giving a speech. That that didn't work for me as far as understanding. So I might just try to read that part again. I'm just trying to read that part again because I just wasn't understanding as much last time. This time, like, uh, and I and I feel like that's okay in the sense that if you're giving a speech or if you're just reading for something, you technically, well, there's two parts because you could just be reading something and then it could say something and you're like, oh, well, I was just reading it. I didn't really like try to pay attention to what it was saying, and it could be something like, controversial just for whatever, right? So, I think that's so, just reading and not even, but you're trying to, you know, make eye contact with the audience. So I feel like that is just a whole nother thing. But if I just read without trying to, like, make eye contact, look up at the camera, as if I'm giving a speech, then I understand more of what I was reading. So I'm gonna just go back and read the first part of aesthetics because I just didn't understand it. So let me go back to it. Here it goes. Aesthetics is the branch of philosophical inquiry concerned with the nature of art, beauty, and the experience of both. Okay, that's mainly what it talks about towards the end anyway. Art and beauty. And it's beauty because then it's some, artists going on making something, she said the word rebarbative, or I'm not sure, it's AC Grayling, and I just feel like that could be a guy or a girl, I don't know. But, okay, a yet more general characterization is that aesthetics is a study of nature and objects of sensual appreciation. What sensual has its literal meaning pertaining to the senses, the five senses: sight, hearing, smell, and taste. The point of describing aesthetics specifically in terms of senses is that the term itself is a coining from the Greek word asthenomai, meaning sense perception. The more general definition just given allows that natural objects and nature itself are sources of sensual delight. Mountain scenery, the smell of a rose, the human form and prime condition. As much, if not sometimes more than works of art, nature is indeed far more frequently a prompt for a sense of the sublime than art, though the greatest works of music can scarcely be far behind. The first question that besets any reflection on value, aesthetics or ethical, is value, beauty, goodness, objective or subjective? That is, does value exist in the world independently of our interests and purposes, or is it a projection into the world of these psychological states? Again, these are all what it's kind of just like the end of it just really focuses on and talks about. So now, in aesthetics, further questions quickly follow. What is it for a work of art to express the intentions or emotions of its creator? How does the achievement of a work of art relate to the advantages and disadvantages of the medium in which it's wrought? For example, how does the excellence or otherwise of a sculpture relate to the facts about marble and its workable qualities? In narrative art, such as drama and the novel, what if any kind of truth? The fact that they call drama and novel narrative art still considered art. What if any kind of truth can there be? And in what sense, if any, do fictional objects exist? Think of how we would answer the question. Does Mr. Pickwick exist? I don't know who that is. Okay. A symphony by Beethoven is a work of art. So is a particular performance of it by the London Symphony Orchestra on the Thursday evening. So is a performance of it on the next Saturday evening by the Boston Philharmonic. Are these all the same type of work of art? Or is a particular performance, a concert, a dance, an enactment of a play on a given occasion, a different kind of artwork from a single durable thing, such as a statue, painting, or novel? Evidently, some aesthetic considerations are entirely general to all possible objects of aesthetic appreciation, and some are specific to a particular subject matters. The importance of aesthetic experience is very great. It is impossible to imagine a good life or a good world without art, or the human ability to enjoy nature, or in general looking aesthetic dimensions. The importance of aesthetic experience is very great. It is impossible to imagine a good life or a good world without art, or the human ability to enjoy nature, or in general lacking aesthetic dimensions of the different kinds that feed the human spirit. Given that inquiry into the aesthetics, in part helps to educate just such responsiveness and appreciation, it must count as one of the central projects of humanity. One aspect of interest in aesthetics bears the label aestheticism. No, one aspect of interest in aesthetics. Okay. Aestheticism is the attitude in literature and the fine arts that art is an end in itself and requires no external justification, least of all in requiring any practical, moral, or educational use in order to be valuable. Okay, aestheticism is the attitude in literature and the fine arts. Okay. Aestheticism is the attitude in literature and the fine arts that art is an end in itself and requires no external justification, least of all in requiring any practical, moral, or educational use to be valuable. Théophile Gautier provided aestheticism with its slogan, L'art pour l'art, art for art's sake. And this idea, to which he became committed as a member of the little coterie of artists in Paris early in the 1830s, in which he promoted vigorously as editor of the magazine The Artist in the 1850s, was a stimulus for the symbolists in literature and painting in the mid-19th century France, and to the aesthetics movement inspired by Walter Pater in England in the second half of the 19th century. In the guise of this close related idea that form is of greater significance than content in art. Aestheticism continued in the 20th century, and the contemporary guises survive still. It's not a good bandana day. It is not. Or let me keep going. Aestheticism's theoretical roots lie in the view urged by Emmanuel. No. Oh, yeah, Emmanuel Kant. Oh, this is back on page 8. That art is to be judged by intrinsic criteria, not by anything extrinsic. And he put it in his critique of judgment. Beautiful things are purposive without purpose, or at least without definite purpose. Sometimes this phrase is rendered as final without end, that is, as apparently fulfilling an aim without an aim, either being given a necessary. Necessary. Why is necessary hard to say? Thus, beautiful things and works of art in general affect us as if they were meaningful or purposive beyond themselves while in fact being so. Aestheticism states that this is how things should be in the arts. This is how things should be in the arts. No, I'm on this page. And one greatly and highly controversial debate is in aesthetics concerns the question of what is art. The other great question is what is beauty. This perhaps is the first question of aesthetics, because whatever one answers to the question of what is art, one has to know what one is including or excluding, showing to be essential or inessential to its nature. When the question of beauty's relation to art is mooted, beauty is almost certainly not essential to art, but is a common enough aim of art, and sometimes is what elevates toward a work to the condition of art. In all these connections, we need to know what we think it is. One effort at definition might be this: beauty is that quality consisting in one or more form, harmony, color, texture, of something that which excites some combination of reactions of pleasure, admiration, and attraction of a sensuous or intellectual kind, or both, in a human observer. The very fact that one has to attempt a definition by means of such generalities illustrates both the difficulty of defining beauty and the difficulty of deciding whether it is an objective quality of things or a suggestive projection from varying individual responses. The study of aesthetics addresses both matters. In the tradition of antiquity, there was much agreement that beauty, whether intellectual or sensuous, and here the senses is primarily that of vision, is a matter of proportional harmony. The Pythagoreans located harmonies. Let's talk about harmonies. Okay. Much later, beauty is a form of pleasure. This differs from the view of St. Augustine, who argued that beauty is a cause of pleasure, not identical with it. Beauty is an objective property. Beauty is beauty is a form, St. Augustine. Beauty is the cause of pleasure. Beauty is a form of pleasure, or beauty is the cause of pleasure. This agreement is a distinct one because St. Augustine's view is consistent with that beauty is an objective property. It's a cause of pleasure. Whereas Aquinas's makes it, if it's a form of pleasure, makes it subjective. With this, Rene Descartes and David Hume agreed regarding all objects of beauty as subjective and individual, and an expression of emotional responses. Reduce the value of beauty, but rather raise the value of mind for their applies honorable and praiseworthy basic beauty and things that sense have required. Either objective or subjective element. Okay. Right view of he thinks that beauty from the sublime. The funniest thing about this thing is the fact that, like, how do I explain? It's just the fact that they really, like, it was argued. It's a thing. Like, they argue over what is beauty, what is aesthetics, what is art. Is beauty a form of pleasure, or is beauty a cause of pleasure? Like, these are debates that they were having. This is like, it's a thing.